all emotional states that you're likely to go through during the entire spectrum of a violent event. So that means pre-fight, what happens before, in fight, what happens during the fight, post-event, what happens immediately afterwards. So as a civilian, striving to stay within the realms of reasonable and necessary in the eyes of the court, I would be required to do enough and not too much. Enough to stop the threat, but no more, not retribution. But in all cases, if I preemptively struck him and he's falling and I've caught him by their clothing, so I've attached, now I can control his descent. So in a situation like that, you're most likely going to end up 2-on-1 in a lift, which is very fucking interesting, I can tell you from experience. If I had to have any situation with anyone, for me, it would be inside the realms of a phone box. Because you can't get away from me, and I've got all my tools, and I'm fucking mean. I'm old, but I'm mean. Much more chance of dealing with that situation than the average Joe, who's never had so much as an argument with his wife. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. In which case, the way that sociopath would think pre-fight would be very, instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm stuck in here with me, I'm stuck in here with these two nuts, these crazy people, they're going to fucking hurt me. He'd be thinking, these two cunts are stuck in here with me. Different. Very different. It's like if there's three on one. Oh shit, there's three of them. I'm fucked. You're fucked. Let's change that shit.
All right, welcome back to another Gutter Fighting Secrets Tactical Podcast. Today's going to be Tactical Podcast number 40. So we're here today with Lee Morrison, grandfather, father, whatever you want to call it, of the freaking Urban Combatives movement. Urban Combatives is really, in case you haven't been like up on it and living under a freaking rock, Urban Combatives is a UK-based self-defense or self-preservation system. And yeah, you're on YouTube, which is actually how I discovered you guys. Check it out, guys. He's got great stuff out there. So, Lee, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for coming on, bro.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So we were talking kind of right before we went live here, man, and you were giving us kind of an insight into what Urban Combatives was, how it got started, and where you're going with it now, which has kind of changed up.
Okay, yeah. Well, basically started 1999, so it's just over 20 years it's been going, and this is how it started. It started as 3 or 4 lads that got together that wanted to pressure test and train. So at that time, we all worked on the doors, and we were all students training with anyone that was anyone. And I had a good combatives influence, Dennis Martin and a guy called Pete Robbins, that were teaching me the principle-based concepts of what was taught during, war period, the World War II type combatives. And it was more the mentality that and we were practicing various things, and we were pressure testing in a group, because Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, I was finding out what worked and what didn't work. It was like a training laboratory. So I'd go back, oh, look, that worked really fucking well, but I had to adapt it. I just dropped it, didn't work for me. So it was like that, testing the ground. So originally, when we started teaching a club, with no name, we'd just get together and bang. We'd sign a waiver, gum shield, guard, whatever. And we would simulation a scenario train to total fucking non-compliancy, knockout or submission. And 4 people turned into 6 people, 6 people turned into 10 people. And before you knew it, I had like a class full of people. And I figured, well, I need to start formulating some kind of curriculum so that I can present it and we can work the fundamentals of this rather than just crash and bash. I really didn't want to become a teacher. I just wanted cannon fodder. And I was willing to be there canning fodder. I wanted like-minded people, just wanted to fucking bang, find out what worked and what didn't work. And what works and what doesn't work is principle-based, not technical-based. So I don't think of Urban Combatives as a system. I think if you systemize anything, you put it in a box and close the lid, it's got no room for growth.
Yeah.
What you see is, it's a bunch of concepts that are geared toward dealing with a combative subject or a violent event. So the term combatives doesn't exist in the dictionary. It's a modern word, coined by the self-protection fraternity, and it's come to mean anything that's proved itself to work under real fight duress is considered combatives, right? If you said combative, plural, this would be like as it is in the dictionary. It means somebody who's argumentative, willing to fight. Or the place could be combative, gets very troublesome. Yeah. But the word combatives never existed. It didn't even exist in World War II during the times of Fairbairn and Sykes. It was close combat, close quarter combat. But combatives is basically a bunch of simple gross motor skills, hard skills, designed primarily to be proactive, but also counter-offensive or reactive, if you like. And the toolbox is small, driven by fucking mentality. Really is. So 90% mental attitude has to be combative. So otherwise, you're just doing martial arts in genes. So the concept's simple enough. So I'll give you an idea. We work to principles. There's a principle called blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg is the word that comes from wartime, and it means an offensive, proactive campaign designed to totally fucking overwhelm the enemy before there is any chance of retaliation or recovery. Now, that's a concept. What does that mean? Unarmed, that means hit first. It means hit first and attach and continue hitting. So although one preemptive clinical strike, put the threat down would be the ideal, we all know life fucking isn't ideal. So anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So you must have contingency plans. So the proactive contingency plan of blitzkrieg is hit this fucker in the head and get a hold of him so he can't get away from you and beat down on any available target until he's no longer ambulatory. Put him on the floor and fuck off. That's the objective. It's not technical based. I didn't say use a palm strike, then hammer fist and an elbow, or use a punch, left cross and right hook, or a buffalo eyebrow. It doesn't matter what fucking skill you use. Just take the concept. Hit the cunt, grab him, and beat him till he's done. That's it. Yeah.
That's something I really like about your system, Lee, is I watch you talking about this stuff, and you're not using all of these nerdy, fancy terminologies with, hammer fist and this and this and this and hit him in his cervical spine. Like, you just say, hit the fucker until he's down and stomp on him and run away. Like, it's so simple.
Obviously, my curriculum is combative orientated. So it employs the tools, a palm, a slap, a hammer fist, an elbow, a knee. These are our primary weapons, maybe an eye blitz. These are our primary weapons. Then we would have secondary tools, gouging, ripping, tearing, biting, ballistic manipulation, smashing off the environment, picking up a weapon. Any number of things like that would be our hard skills. So there's three elements to any good personal security. And this is what's missing from the majority of self-defense. Three elements of self-protection are personal security. So street smarts, learning to be switched on when you are out in another environment, alert, aware, situationally aware, but also have a cognitive understanding of pre-threat cue behavior. So you've got to know what you're looking for. So if three guys are walking down the street and one makes eye contact with you in a hard stare, then turns to his two friends for group communication, and then they all fucking look at you, how much more information than that you need to know that you've got a fucking problem? Well, that's pre-threat cue recognition. So a lot of people talk about the importance of awareness. Of course it is. You've got to know what you're looking for. So personal security would be high level of situational awareness, as well as an understanding of pre-threat cue behavior. Then it would escalate to confident body language profile. Walk at a brisk pace, confident gait. Don't be afraid to make eye contact and smile, so that you are less likely to be selected as a victim of assault in the first place. If you look like food, you get fucking eaten, right? Then you would employ somebody approached you who you didn't know, an unknown contact. Let's say you would use some kind of non-violent posture, which we all know is defense or a position of de-escalation or whatever, but a natural, unobtrusive position that will allow you to maintain a barrier between you and him momentarily. You would also do this in a way where you step past the person. So say somebody, you're walking and somebody steps in front of you. Well, even if they're smiling and they suddenly stop you, that's a very abrupt display of behavior. They've encroached. So you should never allow anyone to just stop you where you stand and then your hands come up, because if they had a secondary subject, which there most likely is, he's already behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm looking towards this person and this person's here and he stops me, I would step past him, move around and force him to reorient. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
And in that moment, it would allow me to scan and see if there's a secondary subject. And whilst doing that, if there's time, of course, I'll be scanning where the fuck are his hands. So the two things you need to expect in a situation like that is weapons and a mate, multiples, right? So examples of personal security would be using fence, controlling the situation, verbal de-escalation, that kind of thing. Non-physical shit, that's in play. That will allow you to deal with 95%, at least in normal society, 95% of the problems. Nowadays, less, but 95% of problems, you could see it. Best self-protection of all, don't fucking be there, right?
Yeah.
That comes from awareness. If not, then the situation is going to become physical. So the first element of self-protection, personal security, street smarts, right? The second element and the third element of self-protection both are physical dynamic. It means your soft skills failed you and now you're going to have to deal with violence. Well, now it just comes down to being the fucking hammer or the anvil, really, doesn't it? Because we all know, I'll give you a quick rundown. I was born in Southeast London. I left home and school when I was 12 because of the abusive parent and the myriad of drunken boyfriends, right? Used to beat the fuck out of her and beat the shit out of me. So I left when I was 12 and I was a street kid. And very early on, I got involved in street gangs. Then I became involved in football violence for several years. So all of this time, from the age of 11, I was obsessed with martial training. So I started with the traditional stuff that was around. Cut a long story short, I have never stopped training. That's 41 years, right? So 52 I am. 41 of those years I've trained. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of good stuff, but I learned how to fight and how to control the psychology in the street. I learned that in the fucking street. And no one can give you that in a class, no one. Right?
Yeah.
So the combination together really accumulated to urban combatives eventually, because it became like I was in a door environment Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. I was dealing with violence, and in my private life, I was still involved in some movie stuff, so I was dealing with violence. And all of the time I was trained. I trained in anything that's everything from Japanese, Okinawan, Filipino, Indonesian, Thai, Western culture type, combative type stuff, boxing, fucking judo, shoot, wrestling, you name it. I tried with everything, right? I traveled globally and I trained with some of the best people in the world. Very fortunate. I learned the most about dealing with violence from people I've fought in the street and people that I've fought in the nightclub, you know? So the second element of self-protection, what I learned is the one that goes first with the most usually comes out the fucking best. So you want to be proactive. You want to be preemptive, right? So the idea of the principle of blitzkrieg is an offensive campaign designed to totally overwhelm the enemy before there's any chance of retaliation or recovery. So the guy gives me a pre-threat cue. So I understand there has to be a criteria for that. So if my soft skills didn't allow me to avoid this subject and he approached me and he's hostile and triggers an instinct, I'm not just going to hit him. If I could leave, I'd leave. We're working off the premise here that I try to leave and he arrests my movement. He now maybe touches my fence hand once. We have a two-touch rule. No one touches your hand more than twice without taking action. So if I'm forced to push him back because he's trying to push the boundary, he's telling me he's going to be assaulted. If you wait for the confirmation of that assault, it will come in the form of injury to you and you'll be fucked up. So, you know, Kelly McCann said that to me 20 years ago, you know. It's a known fact. People come to similar conclusions by a similar experience. So the idea is to hit first. Now, the ideal would be one clinical preemptive strike, man down. And that can happen. You have to have a contingency plan for what if. What if he's just a tough bastard? What if he forgot his medication? What if blah, blah, blah? What if there's more than one? What if he pulls a weapon? Do, so on. But the primary clinical thing for dealing with a threat would be to get a recce on position, recognize what's in his hands or not, recognize he's with somebody or not. Now, if there's any kind of pre-threat cue behavior that tells me I'm going to have to deal with violence, I'll hit first. And if he's not immediately down, I'll continue to strike. So what I teach is, I teach a preemptive shot followed by an attachment immediately. Strike and attack. You can't always attach, but strive to. 2 reasons. 1, if the shot's clinical and he's unconscious, then his unconscious head, shoulders, neck, and body are just about to hit fucking pavement. You don't want that. So you see the headline, guy dead, 1 punch, 1 punch. It's the fucking pavement. So as a civilian, striving to stay within the realms of reasonable and necessary in the eyes of the court, I would be required to do enough and not too much. Enough to stop the threat, but no more, not retribution. But in all cases, if I preemptively struck him and he's falling and I've caught him by their clothing, so I've attached, now I can control his descent, which is very, very useful post-event if you have to articulate your use of force to a court of law, right? So if I have to use the term self-defense, this is where, the term self-defense belongs. It doesn't belong in your thinking. It doesn't belong in your vocabulary. Because understand what defense is. Defending is losing. It means you are reacting to something he is doing to you. The initiative has been taken. So he has advantage, right? All these methods of self-defense in Krav Maga, you go to them and the lesson begins with, right, guys grabbed you here, and now you must do A, B, C, and D. Well, that says to me that the first element of self-protection, awareness, observation, knowing pre-threat cue behavior, was not in place. Because if it was in place, I would have seen the subject before he closed distance on me and taken some kind of action. It wasn't fucking Star Trek. He didn't just materialize around my neck. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the example of guy grabs you by the throat, that would be the end. If you rewound, there's a middle and then there's a beginning. Beginning would be, I see the cut. So there's no fucking way I'm going to let him put his hands on me. I'll preempt. But what if you are, not everybody can be switched on all the time. And you cannot always be preemptive. Trust me, can't always. Maybe I was preoccupied with a text on my phone because I'm pissed off about something else because I'm human, and I didn't see this dude, and now it grabs me. Well, of course, I've got to have a contingency plan for how to deal with that. But it's not my plan A. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So any class where you go into the class and the class begins with the person defending, he's already fucking losing. So I'm very careful. I'm a master NLP practitioner, neuro-linguistic programming, and I use it a lot in my teaching. Words, language, linguistics are so important. I mean, they're so important in law here. You don't. Lots of people don't know, and they just use the wrong terminology. Use italic instead of bold, capital letter here instead of lowercase, and you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So words under the fucking government crown are. You need to know words. But words also elicit emotional response. So how I use language in teaching, if I was setting up a drill, I would not say to the person, right, you are the aggressor, you are the victim. Because I've just empowered the aggressor and disempowered the victim. So what's your mentality when you hear that, oh, right, okay, I'm the victim? So straight away, you might adopt victim physiology. Your posture slows and you drop your head. Well, that's not what you fucking want. Not if you want to stand your ground. You need confident body language profile with elevated head. So I change that shit. I don't use terminology like that. I use the terminology of either neutral, where I say, right, this subject, problematic subject, has selected you as a potential target. This is a neutral thing, right? So that doesn't really elicit any emotional response at all. But I do want you to elicit emotional response because you need the attitude. So my terminology, how I will use that would be, right, you are the selected subject from the problematic individual, and he is meat. Right? He is meat. He's just a walking, talking fucking Bob Dummy that you're going to kick living fuck out of if he doesn't get gone. And that's a very different type of focus before the drill starts. Your pre-fight perspective is very different. And your pre-fight perspective is everything. So most self-defense trainees teach their students how not to be victims. I don't do that. They've got their parties muddled up. I don't teach my students how not to be victims. I teach them how to be predatory. I teach them how to be predatory. Now, lots of people may think that's a negative statement. Of course it's not. We're at the top of the food chain for a fucking reason. You know, predators eat predators. But I'm not talking about a predator that's going to prey on the innocents. I'm talking about a predatory figure that can deal with shit. Does that make sense? Right. So I watch a lot of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson talks about the darker part of yourself. We've all got a dark twin. And if you can get to know your dark twin and become good allies and use him as you need to see fit and not beyond, then you're onto something. Because, like, you familiar with Jordan Peterson from Canada?
Yeah, you like him a lot here in the States too, man.
He talks about how often men in power, men in home defense, for example, that should know better, say silly statements like, a good man's not capable of violence. A good man should know no violence. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Just because it doesn't make you a good man if you don't know violence. A good man has to know violence. Else, how does he protect himself and those he loves?
Right.
He has to know violence and be willing to deliver a significant amount of violence. So in terms of the level of violence that a predatory subject could inflict upon me for the purpose of street robbery and kicks, the level of violence I can inflict back must eclipse that.
Yeah.
Do you understand? I must have the ability to immediately access a level of violence and aggression that will totally fucking eclipse what I'm facing. Well, that comes from mental conditioning. And when you get it through mental conditioning, you can get it through drilling, you realize that it's cold clinical aggression that you've cultivated as a training resource or as a resource of life, that you can switch on when you need it and switch off when it's done. You have state management. You have state control. What I'm not talking about is hot, mindless aggression, red mist, where you just lose the fucking plot and you just don't know what the fucking day is. That will get you killed. You know, I need to have the ability to control all emotional states that you're likely to go through during the entire spectrum of a violent event. So that means pre-fight, what happens before, in-fight, what happens during the fight, post-event, what happens immediately afterwards. Clear? So pre-fight begins with how you think. How you think affects how you feel, affects your whole state of being, really. So you need to think in the right way. So if I'm thinking to myself, here's a hypothetical scenario. You're in an elevator, a lift, we call it, and you door opens on the floor and two aggressive-looking animated subjects step into the lift. They both look like they're fucking juiced up and they're all coked off their head. They're animated, they're talking to each other, and they're talking about how when they get up to the next floor upstairs, matey who lives in flat 22 is going to get a right fucking idea. And then they start punching the walls because, you know, they want to create an atmosphere because they're off their head. Now imagine you as a solo person stood in that lift, just standing there in a natural, unobtrusive position. How do you think you'd feel? I put it to you that you would feel fucking scared. Even with experience of violence, you will feel the feelings that people misinterpret for fear. You will feel the adrenal response. You will most likely, particularly if your heart rate escalates enough, go from parasympathetic to sympathetic nervous system, in which case you're not as compass mentis as you was. You know, you're struggling to hold on to cognitive decision-making thought before you become limbic. So you'd have to control yourself. Now, in a situation like that, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So if I maintain eye contact with two subjects, they're going to say, what the fuck are you looking at? And if I don't purposely make eye contact with two subjects, they're going to think I'm scared.
Yeah.
So you can't really win. So in a situation like that, you're most likely going to end up 2-on-1 in a lift, which is very fucking interesting, I can tell you from experience. If I had to have any situation with anyone, for me, it would be inside the realms of a phone box. Because you can't get away from me, and I've got all my tools, and I'm fucking mean. I'm old, but I'm mean. You know what I mean? I'll bounce the cunt off everything. But if my thinking was in that lift, so my thinking equates to my pre-fight perspective on the event. If I think, oh, fuck, there's too many of these mad fuckers in here, and I'm trapped in here with them, it's over. You know? You don't become more trapped in a little steel box with two fucking lunatics. And CCTV is after the event, because even if it catches them kicking living fuck out of you, it's not going to help you in the moment. So you're in a dire situation. It's time to get big or go home. So if you're thinking is, oh my God, there's two of them on fucked, you're fucked. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you got to change that shit. You got to reframe your perspective. It helps to be a little bit sociopathic. Yeah. That does help. And a lot of people think that's a really negative thing, but you know, traits are useful, trust me. Right? And lots of people have traits. So a sociopath would have much more chance of dealing with that situation than the average Joe, who's never had so much as an argument with his wife. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. In which case, the way that sociopath would think pre-fight would be very different. Instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm stuck in here with me, I'm stuck in here with these two nuts, these crazy people, they're going to fucking hurt me. He'd be thinking, these two cunts are stuck in here with me. Different. Very different. It's like if there's three on one. Oh shit, there's three of them. I'm fucked. You're fucked. Just change that shit. I tell my students, just think, well, look, it is what it is. It's all been fucking mapped out. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Now think of it as multiple target opportunity. An opportunity to test my tools. Different perspective. Do you understand? So that's why when they say in the combatives, 90% emotional, where you think, 10% skill. The skill set's gross motor. Caveman. Pick up rock, fucking smash. That's it. Really. You know, you can make it look sexy, particularly if you've come from 41 years of other martial methods, because everything gives you something. But concept is easy enough to grasp. So back to the three elements of self-protection. First, personal security. Second, which is the physical element, a proactive response. I'm going to hit you first and I'm going to keep going until it's done. That will give you the highest probability of success. A lot of people, it astounds me that for many years, and I'm a historian, you know, I've studied many martial methods and stuff, and I love the histrionics of it all. But all of these martial arts or methods of self-protection are trying to model countermeasures for dealing with a predator, when really they should just model the predator. So if you were, I put it to you that if the average student walked through the door of a Krav Maga school and spent 1 year, 12 months, he would go some way towards gaining the physical skills, at least, that he would need to deal with violence. He'd have to work something out to give himself the mental permission to use that skill set, but he could get the tools, right? Or he could spend 1 week or even a couple of days with a repeat offending career criminal. Hypothetically now, you're with a repeat offending violent criminal with a clipboard. You're going to note his behavior, see what he does, blah, blah, blah. Now, in the face of violence and before delivering violence, look at this character. How does he act? How does he walk? How does he talk? What is his demeanor? Then just before he attacks, what's his thought pattern? What's he thinking? Well, I put it to you that you could take three people from all different walks of life that share a commonality. So you could take a repeat offending violent criminal and then maybe a hard man of reputation. Do you know what I mean? Here it would have been somebody like Roy Shaw or Lenny McLean or somebody like that. A fucking hard bastard that's hard as a coffin now and comes from a bloodline of hard bastards. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you could take a spec ops soldier, I mean, a tier 1 special forces operative. All three of these men share two commonalities. One, they can all deal with violence extremely well. Two, is their pre-fight perspective. The pre-fight perspective is not about what this person could do to them. It's about what they're going to do and how they feel when they've done it. So it's a very different thing. In the mental shift, you can only coach people. You can't show them or install it like you can a physical skill set. Does that make sense? A lot of people come up to me and they say to me, I have a real problem accessing aggression. And I'm quite an honest person. Everybody knows that of me. I'm very John Blunt and straight. And that's because, I usually say, well, you've been fed with a silver spoon all your life. Your mum told you the world's rose tinted and you've never had a fucking fight in your life, have you? Let's be honest. Oh, no, I haven't. No. I bet you've not even had a fucking argument with your girlfriend, have you? No. Well, then, of course, you're not going to know, and you don't know what you don't know. You are unconsciously incompetent to it. So if you have no idea or understanding of how to be aggressive and to deal with violence, then I can only give you a visual example or try to explain it to you. But you might say to somebody, come on, get pissed off, and or act as if. And they're act as if. That's the best way to start, act as if. I get them to access or model a level of aggression. That clearly they weren't aggressive, but they looked fucking aggressive. And as they were doing the skill set, if they'd have actually employed it on somebody in the street, that person in the street, after he wakes up from his unconscious slumber, is not going to say, was you tricking or was you really angry? Do you know what I mean? It looked as if. So the way to get it is act as if. Wear the suit like it fits. Eventually it'll be tailored. Right? Of course, you're not clearly aggressive. If I wanted to make you massively aggressive, so we run a course called Psychom, which is the psychology of combat. And we run scenarios, we do a lot of visualization, etc., etc. So if I wanted you to really access an emotional state, I would make you think about loss. So people say, oh, I can't get aggressive. And I say, right, okay, well, if you can't get aggressive to protect you, then you need to get aggressive to protect what you love. So I'll run this by you quick. We're cool with this? You're all right with this?
Yeah, you're good, man.
Right. So hypothetical situation. So here's the thing. I'm 52 years old, right? I've had countless relationships with women in my life, and they all say the same thing. You don't fucking grow up. And I went, of course I don't fucking grow up. I'm Peter Pan. Why will I grow up? And I'm Peter Pan in as much as I've never lost my imagination. Your imagination is the most powerful training tool or resource that you have. Between your ears is a virtual reality simulator. People don't fucking use it, right? Now that hardens up after the age of 7. Jesuit said, give me a child before the age of 7, I'll make him king. Meaning that a child before the age of 7, before limiting disbeliefs have set in, it has plausibility for anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I use that a lot in my training, right? So I say to people, imagine a hypothetical situation. You are walking down a street, you have to take a diversion, and you've ended up somehow in a subway. 2 guys step out in front of you, one's got a knife. You realise that they want to do more than rob you, right? So even if you give up your shit, there's a good chance you're going to fight. And in that moment, because you're one of these people that's never actually experienced real violence in their life, I mean, it seems to have skipped a couple of generations. Okay, I don't know how. But a couple of decades at least, it seems like you still get your slum kids, the kids from the ghetto, and the kids that grew up. But the majority of youngsters can get right through to the age of 40 without so much as an argument.
Yeah.
You know? It's been a long piece. That's about to fucking change, I'll tell you. And they've got no experience of violence, but they train in a martial method, or they train in Krav Maga or anything else. And you say to them, if you talk to them honestly, you say to them, look, I know you've been doing this shit for fucking years now, man. You're pretty good, you're banging on the pads, but, shit and fan really met. Do you reckon you could do it? And they'd be like, first thing that would kick in would be ego. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure it just kick in. But you're not going to know unless you're there, right? And this person has that full sense of security that's been developed through these years of training, and suddenly finds himself in that fucking subway with two dudes, one's at night. And in that moment, you can't find it in yourself to get aggressive enough to deal with the violence. Because understand why you want to get aggressive. Any good woman will tell you, men cannot multitask. So it's impossible to be in two emotional states at exactly the same time. I'm either petrified and scared, or I'm fucking angry. I find indignation. It's one or the other. It's not both. So if you remember the naturalist, Steve Irwin, that died. Remember him?
Yeah. You got hit by a stingray or something, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I saw him put his head inside a little cavern cave bit here, and right here was a rattlesnake, and it fucking reared up, and it's like that with its rattle, and its young were right behind it. Now I don't know about you, but I'd shit myself. I really would. I'd rather fight 5 pikeys in a pub. Right? So that wouldn't be my thing. But he was like this. He was like, look at her iridescent sheen. Isn't she beautiful? Like that. And it's right here. So his fear, his emotional, natural, fearful response was overtaken by an emotional state of fascination. Oh. You understand? You can't be in two emotional states exactly at the same time. So you need, if somebody suddenly makes me fearful, the more fearful you make me, the more dangerous I'll become. Yeah. Right? So, and that's because I have a belief system. But my belief system is I'm too important to be taken away. It's not my time yet. When it's my time, it's my time. But I'm too important to lose. Not because I'm a hot shit. Because there is too many people in my life that need me. And I need them. I got a lot more to do yet. I ain't ready to go. So there's no fucking way some little miscreant or two miscreants in the fucking subway, one with a knife, is going to take me. It's not going to happen. I'm going to end them, or I'm going to die doing it. So my fear would be replaced with indignation. Does that make sense? Yeah. So my first layer of my belief system is self-importance. I'm too important to be taken. People don't put self-worth on themselves. That's why they don't find it in themselves to protect themselves. You can find it in themselves to protect the child or somebody else, but not themselves. You should, because there's only one of you. You're unique. You know, someone takes me out, it's done. Life's not fucking rehearsal. So if somebody threatens my life, I get angry. My thinking structure is, how fucking dare you threaten everything I love and everything, to take everything away from me and me away from it. You step to the scratch if you want to die. That's my thinking. Right? It's old school. People don't think that way anymore. But my generation, and so the first layer is self-importance, second layer is indignation, third layer is confidence. I've been doing this shit for 42 years, and I've been fighting since I was 7. You know, most days of my life, how can you not get good? Do you know what I mean? So I can do it. So that's my belief system. So quite often I will throw that out like a fly. Most criminals are intelligent. They're savvy. One predator will always recognize another. Yeah. I've lost count of the time. I've been everywhere, all over the world. I've had this happen to me in Russia. It's happened to me in US, in Canada, in UK, all over Europe, Ukraine. You get that predatory recognition where you walk past somebody, they look at you, you think you look something, whatever else. You make eye contact and then they just go, right, boss, like that, just nod. Mm-hmm. Predatory recognition. So if they recognize the vibe from me as they're intelligent, and they want to fuck off quickly. Does that make sense? But getting back to the situation of the hypothetical trainee that thinks he'll do well, in that moment when he's faced with the two violent subjects, one with a knife, he totally capitulates. And as a result, he gets stabbed to death. right? So think about that for a second. That's loss of you. What does that mean? That means basically that you'll never see another full moon. You'll never see another sunset. You'll never see another day. You'll never have another meal with your wife. You'll never play with your kids. You'll never take another holiday. You'll never reach another goal. You'll never do another fucking thing. It's done. It's over. And that's it. So that's loss, right? Most people would think about that long enough. Because remember, I said you're using your imagination. So this is a hypothetical scenario that's played out the bad way. And you can rewind it and see what you would have needed to have done in order to make it go another way. And a big part of that would be how you are communicating or thinking to yourself. So if you're thinking, oh my God, there's two of them, I'm scared, it's done, it's finished, you're capitulating, you'll die. Whereas if you think, you two cunts are coming with me, do you know what I mean? If this is how I'm going to end up area. And nothing else matters in life than me biting your fucking nose off and spitting it down your friend's throat. That's the only thing in my world that matters in that moment. That's the mentality you need to deal with that, right? But our hypothetical situation didn't have that. So as a result, lost everything. I said, if that doesn't invoke indignation in you, because it would me, think about loss from a different perspective. Think about loss now from those you love's perspective of losing you. So imagine the situation. In these days, you've got to be careful how you say it, because you don't know who's a man, who's a woman, who's a mixed gender, what's the fucking, who's straight, who's gay, who's not. You know, but I'll give you the old school, what I believe, right? Imagine that said person had a wife, 3 kids, nice house, whatever, right? A partner, let's say, and could be his gay lover, I don't mind. But let's just say he's got a significant other. And the police knock on the door, she opens the door, and imagine their face the moment that they say to her, I'm sorry to inform you that your husband is dead. He was stabbed to death in a subway as a result of aggravated street robbery. Imagine her expression on your wife's face the second she hears that news. Imagine the pain she'd feel in her heart and everything else. Right? Imagine 10 minutes later when it's sunk in and she's starting to fucking really throb. Her mother has got all the children, and because she can't speak, she's incoherent. But tomorrow she's got to tell her kids, Daddy's dead, Daddy's gone. Imagine your little kid's face. Imagine how they'd be upset, how they'd hurt. And then, remember, this is all because the 2 fucking miscreants in the subway that you couldn't find the bollocks to deal with because you were scared. You couldn't access your skill set because you didn't have the right mentality of thinking. This is why that happened. Fast forward now, 3 months. Well, if you're old school like me, then you was hunter-gatherer, which means you paid all the fucking bills and paid the mortgage, which means your wife was a housewife, she raised the kids. She ain't got no job, she ain't got no money. She can't pay the mortgage. She's getting evicted. We're all getting evicted. They're going to end up in a shitty area downtown in a crusty council flat. Kids are going to be going to a nasty school and getting bullied, and it's going to be hell for them. You know? Fast forward 6 months. 6 months where your kids are smiling again, they think about daddy often, and they cry and they get upset, but kids are silly, they bounce back, they're having fun, they're all right. Your wife, 10 months down the line, she's been loyal for 10 months, but now she lies down at night with somebody else. How the fuck would that make you feel? And when you build it up to somebody in this way and you make them think about loss, I just give it as a talk and encourage them to do it in their own time. They do. If you did, and you're a normal, sane human being, you would go through a myriad of emotions. If you could visualize intently, seeing what you would see, hearing what you would hear, feeling what you would feel, the actual situation of the 2 muggers in the subway one night, you should elicit an escalation in heart rate. You should elicit an emotional response. And you would recognize that as adrenaline starting to hit your body, which often people misinterpret for fear, which quickly turns into its bigger cousin, panic. And before you know it, subjects in what's called condition black. Where heart's gone beyond, heartbeat's gone beyond fucking 175, 220 beats. There's emotional breakdown and shutdown and freeze. This is the one you must avoid at all cases. And this is what cost this poor man's life, hypothetically. And I make people, because you think about this, and they go through an array of emotions. First emotion is, yeah, I feel a bit adrenalized. Second emotion, when I start to think about the loss, they start to get emotional, upset, maybe a few tears, natural thing. Go through it. Most people quit right there. I would say push through it. When you push through it now and you think about all that loss, and you get to the point where your wife's lying down with somebody else now, your mind starts to get a bit fucking twisted. And you start to get the schemas. You start to get, what? This is all because of those two cunts in the fucking alleyway. Like this. Oh man, if I could rewind, I would change that. Well, what would you change? If you could rewind, knowing what you know now, all you would simply change is your mental perspective of the event. Mm-hmm. Instead of capitulating and freezing, you'd think, how fucking dare you step to the scratch if you want to die. And I put it to you that is the difference that makes the fucking difference. For any method of self-preservation, it can be Junfan JKD, it could be Wing Chun, it could be boxing, it could be Thai boxing. It doesn't matter what the skill set is. It's the principles, the delivery, and the way you think. That is everything. So that's the emotional component. So what I'm popular for is, I've taught UC in 40 countries globally, many, many times, thousands of seminars. I really missed the circuit with this ridiculous pandemic bullshit. But I've taught a lot of people this conceptual approach that you need to understand predatory behavior, know how shit happens. And you need to model predatory behavior in order to deal with the same. You need to have the ability to desensitize yourself to violence so that you can employ it. Because these people are totally desensitized to you. It's nothing to them. Not only now will kids stab each other to death, but they fight for a space so that they can video it on their phone. That's not normal society. Society is being conditioned for massive violence. And what we're seeing now, part of this fucking pandemic bullshit, is all designed to separate us, put us in fight with each other, and keep us in a constant state of fight or flight response. Every day of this thing is like living in condition orange. You're familiar with the Cooper's color codes, right?
Yeah, for our audience members out there who might not be, I guess it would start at condition white, correct?
Right. So I'll explain it quick. So Colonel Cooper, Jeff Cooper, great man. He was combat pistol instructor for the US Marine Corps, among other people, during decades ago, 60s, I believe. And he developed, among many other things, Cooper's color codes. And Cooper's color codes were designed to define varying levels of awareness. So condition white is what the FBI call victim state, switched off, totally detached from the herd, living inside your head, not outside your head. This makes you very attractive to a predatory criminal. Now, we need condition white, but we only need it when we're at home, relaxing, watching TV, or asleep in our bed. It's decompression time. You must have it. But it does not belong when you're out and about. When you're out and about, you should slip into a condition yellow, live your life in yellow, which you are alert and aware enough to see if there is anything out of the ordinary, and you are aware at all times what's behind you, let's say. In a relaxed state of yellow, everything's yonky-dory, your heart rate is consistent, calm. It starts to go awry when you move into the next level of state, and that would be condition orange. So condition orange is you're going from a state of awareness to a state of alarm. Something's happened in your immediate environment that dictates threat. The amygdala, the almond-shaped gland behind your hypothalamus, is the threat detecting organ. This is kicking off and going mad. This creates an escalation in heart rate, shallow breathing, and a myriad of adrenal effects. If you don't understand them, they will take you by surprise. The only way to control them is to know them. The way to know them is to experience them, so you can be sensitized to a degree. That's why a lot of people can use adrenaline, and other people will freeze and capitulate, right? So anyone that's usually in harm's way, a police officer, a soldier, a bodyguard, a fireman, doorman, a security operative, a criminal drug dealer, whatever else, they're used to events that kick off the amygdala response. You understand? But so you're alerted to, I don't know, maybe it's the situation I said before. Walking down the street, three guys are walking this way. They're rambunctious and boyish, and all of a sudden they're loud. One of them looks at you, hard stare. Then he looks at his friends, taps his friends for his attention, and they all look. Well, that would be a great example of going from condition yellow to condition fucking orange, touching on red. That means you're in an alarm state now. What will accompany that is a massive escalation in heart rate, which you need to know how to control, particularly if you want to implement a proactive response using your skill set to keep that shit calm. And then when you're taken to the point where you're either going to run or you have to strike, fight or flight, you would hit condition red, which is action. And what most people don't understand until they actually go there and do it is that taking the action is the best thing to do, because now it utilizes the adrenaline. Before that, you are like a Ferrari sat at the traffic lights, revving up all this power, but you're not going anywhere. As soon as you preemptively strike, attach, and start to wail, you are putting it in gear and using the acceleration. Does that make sense? But a lot of people have no understanding of adrenaline. So condition red could quickly turn into what I said before, condition black. Condition black is where you just have an emotional breakdown. But my point of mentioning to you the color codes was that since the beginnings of this lockdown and this, what I personally think is a ridiculous ruse of a pandemic, people are living their life in condition orange every day. It's like for a woman living in a domestically violent relationship. Every time she goes home, she's in condition orange. And you're always thinking, what the fuck's going to happen next? Fuck. When's civil unrest coming? When is there going to be an uprising? When are we going to become fucking lawless? Because there's a high probability it could. Like we said before we started recording, I said to you, there's been multiple armed home invasions during a period of lockdown, where four guys have posed as a parcel dude, and as he's come out to pick up the parcel and he's taking the photo of the picture, he swarmed them. One kid got shot in the face, someone got macheted, someone got hit with an axe. So that's happening where during a period of so-called lawfulness, we're still so-called lawful society, people are pissed off and everybody's complying. So if that can happen during a period of lawful society, what can happen if it gets to the point where there's just riots everywhere, there's fucking anarchy? Self-preservation turns into anarchy. And momentarily, however long or short, we find ourselves lawless. Police have already said, we won't be able to respond to the majority of violent crime. Well, what does that mean? That means that no one's coming. And that means they'd have the carte blanche to fucking home invade anyone they want. Criminals will be rife in the street. Add to that, there's no supplies. We can't get any. There's a food shortage for a period of time. Well, people get fucking hungry. They get crazy.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a need in one big hurry. And I said it to all my students, and I say it to a lot of people on media when I talk. There needs to be a shift in your mentality for self-protection or self-preservation perspective, and there needs to be a shift in your skill set. So, like I said to you before, normally we would teach UC from a UK perspective where we're not allowed weapons, always striving to stay within the realms of the law. If you're ever going to use your skills for the purpose of self-protection, particularly if you use them preemptive, you have to have a criteria for that. There must have been a reason that you did it. You can't just hit somebody. They must have arrested your movement. Maybe they pushed you back, knocked your fence down. Maybe they shifted body weight. Maybe they looked at that bottle on the table. Maybe they reached into their waistband. This would be a pre-threat cue that would tell me, boom, I need to fucking keep going. But if I had to do that, and I'm justified to do that, I'm going to use force that would be considered reasonable and necessary. So the way the court works here is really it's all corrupt, because they don't give a fuck who's guilty, who's innocent, who can prosecute.
Yeah.
So a big part of self-protection is knowing how to articulate your defense in a court of law or to a police officer. You need to be able to talk without incriminating yourself. So it's an art in itself. but you need to have a good fucking reason as to why you did what you did. And the level of force, was it necessary? Well, yes, it was necessary because he wouldn't let me leave and assault was imminent. And was what you did reasonable? Well, yes, I kept going until he was down. As soon as he was down, I stopped. I left. Reasonable and necessary. So before we would teach self-protection within this kind of criteria, and of course I still do. But about 4 years ago, when I started to feel things are changing, there's been lots more type of terrorist events, active threats where you're getting, instead of light active shooter, you're getting 3 or 4 extremists with two-bladed weapons taped to their hands so they don't drop them, just trying to decapitate as many infidels as they can. I mean, this was happening. Whether it's a false flag, whether it was set up by our government, whatever the fuck it was, people were dying in the street, which means if you want a chance at dealing with a situation like that, in my opinion, for the average Joe, unarmed skills are not going to cut it. Unarmed skills are not going to cut it. So over the last 10 years here, you had an absolute influx of millions of Middle Eastern, Syrian refugees coming in. And what you saw almost overnight was a ridiculous increase on the amount of attacks that were happening on women. So previously I did, I've been forever in this business. Since 15 years ago, I wrote a book called The Wolverine Within, and it was self-protection for women. And the statistics were based on something like the majority of attacks on 75% on women happen from somebody they know within a domestic violence setting. 25% of attacks happen from an unknown in the street, which would have been rape or something like that. Kidnapping, rape, whatever. Right? Sexual assault. Well, fast forward 10 years, and that dynamic is reversed. It's 25% now from attacks on women from men known to them, and 75% attacks on women from men unknown. Wow. And the MO is always the same. I mean, people don't say anything. It's like the elephant in the room. I don't give a fuck. It needs saying. The MO is always the same. It's usually several men of Middle Eastern appearance raping them at knife point, or rather gang raping them at knife point. That's the MO you're seeing in Germany, in Holland, all across Scandinavia and everything else. And the law is protecting these people. So it's jumped. It's not 25% attacks on women now from men known because domestic violence has dropped. No. It's gone down to 25% because the attacks from unknown men is massively rose. So my point to telling you that is, I don't know of any method of martial arts, combative, self-defense, self-protection, call it ever what the fuck you want, that will equip a woman with a reliable skill set that will allow her to get out of that situation. So I believe that as a student of self-protection, you need to learn weapons. So that brings us to a problem in the UK because we're not allowed to even pepper spray. They even try to outlaw tactical pens here. It's fucking bullshit. So you got to improvise. You got to adapt. So if you have a padlock and a beanie hat, well, now you got a kosh. You know, if I've got a sharpened pencil or a series of pencils, now I've got a spike. You know, anything that is, it could be used as a spike-like tool or a flexible impact tool would be the first 2 improvised tools I would teach. So if a woman had, say, I don't know, say a hair, one of those sharp fucking hair spikes that go in the hair, like Japanese design. Let's say she had one of those, she snapped it off, pulled it out, she's hiding it. And she's in that situation where the first guy's going to approach and she could act deceptively like she was about to capitulate. So she started to undo whatever until he got close. And then she boom, stabbed him straight through the fucking eyeball with an eye spike. That would reverse that dynamic from him immediately, because it's documented fact that rapists are less horny when you stab them in the fucking eyeball, right? He would grasp his eye, drop like a fucking stone. The eye is a switched target. The effects immediate. These little compadres would momentarily pause, I can tell you, giving her the opportunity to run like fuck. She's got a shot. if she did that, right? So I took this to another level, and basically I teach self-protection from the legal perspective, staying within the realms of legality, and I teach another element of self-offense, if you like, which is all bets are off. So all bets are off are if fucking 5 people, 3 or 4 people are coming through my house armed to create home invasion, fucking hurt my children, my wife, fucking kill us all, fucking and take everything, then unarmed skills ain't going to cut it, even for me, right? And trust me, I can fucking have it. So if someone broke in my house, understand as well that my house is a fucking armory. I think you know it's an armory. If you come in my house, you will not leave the way you came in. You will leave in pieces. I've got a fucking long blade and an axe by my fucking bed. It's part of my EDC, nightstand EDC. And my home security is good. So I believe people now should think more along the lines of what we call a tier 1 civilian. So we run a tier 1 civilian program. So tier 1 is the best you can be at anything. The very best that you could be at anything at all, you would be considered tier 1. So look at military. So I've taught many special forces operatives. I've worked in your own Virginia Beach with SEAL teams, and I've worked with lots of the top people. You have, let's say as an example, Navy SEALs, and then you have SEAL Team 6. SEAL Team 6 is tier 1, right? So imagine that analogy of tier 1, the best you could be, to a combative trainee, civilian, but combative trainee. How could you be the best that you could be? Well, you need to know the animal, so understand predatory behavior, have good understanding of soft skills, the UNILU, ability to process information quickly. In short, you are switched on. You would need exceptional unarmed skills. And I'm talking level 10 use of force. How to end somebody quickly. You would need to know that. You would need to know how to use any point and edge tool, from a spike to a blade to a machete to an axe. You would need to know how to use any blunt impact trauma tool, any type of kosh, club, stick, brick, bat. You should also, where plausibility allows you, know how to shoot well. So I shoot every time I'm abroad, but can't shoot here because the UK is fucking anal. So what I can do here is certain dry fire, but you should know how to shoot. So good unarmed skills, ability to use a point and edge weapon, ability to use an impact weapon, ability to shoot. You should also understand offensive, defensive driving, have a good understanding of combat casualty care, and counter custody, methods of counter custody. So unlawful counter custody. If you were taken abroad, how do you, break zip ties? How do you break zip, the duct tape? If you were taken first and bound, not securely, let's say, while you were thrown in a van, on first contact, could you escape? That kind of stuff. That would also encompass like an understanding of your urban environment. How could you find water if the power was down? Bit of bushcraft, bit of prepping skill. All of these skills accumulatively would make you a tier 1 civilian. So I started gearing the training more towards somebody that's much more complete. And that's basically, I did that 4 years, started doing that 4 years before what's happening now. And, I believe now that you really need to, if you are a student of self-protection, you need to know how to use fucking weapons. Know how to shoot if you could shoot. If not, know how to use fuck off shiny knives. Know how to use it. Know how to use an axe, a hammer, anything you can put in your hand. Understand the mindset and the mentality. So we was talking about on the YouTube channel, these home invasions that were happening. We were putting some, trying to put some structured advice about what I think you should do, in my opinion. And of course, it begins with your home security. So your home security should have 3 parameters. First is the outer parameters, so your fences, your walls, your garden. You want something in play will at least give you a detectable that somebody's trying to break in. It will deny access. It will delay them, right? Outer perimeter should be safe. Next is your threshold of your home, your dwellings, your doors, your window, front door, back door. You need to fortify that shit, make sure you're safe. It's never going to keep the most determined person out, but it will delay them. Third layer, if that gets breached, the subjects are inside your house. The only thing protecting you and yours now is you and whatever you've got in your fucking hand and the willingness to use it. Stops with you here. Do you understand? That's a big responsibility. So it's important that you put all measures in play to be the best protector that you can be. You know, because I was saying about Jordan Peterson before, I didn't finish, but I was saying about, he says that people in governmental power say the good man's not capable of violence. But the good man must be capable of violence in order to protect what he loves. The only difference between me and some fucking violent criminal is I will use a greater level of violence than he will, but I will only use it to protect what stood behind me. I will not use it because of what I hate stood in front of me. Does that make sense? So there's the reason is different. A good man, every good man that I've ever met, gentleman, is capable of extreme violence, way beyond what your comprehension. The only difference is they're under control with that. They would only implement that to protect those they love. Do you know what I mean? So the analogy is the sheep and the wolf. You know, if you're the wolf, you eat the sheep. If you're the sheep, you get eaten by the wolf. So what deals with the wolf? Well, they say the sheepdog. The sheepdog protects the fucking sheep from the wolf. I say you want a half breed. You want half sheepdog, half wolf if you want to deal with the wolf. Yeah? And for me, it came fucking easy. Come from my upbringing. But I have thousands of students globally. It's been to 40 countries. There's over 35 schools worldwide, study groups. There's a big UC community, and hopefully it's woke up a lot of them. Yeah. So they do think that way. So Jordan, as Jordan Peterson said, the good man is capable of extreme evil. So why does the person in power say if you're a good man you're not capable of violence? Well, that he uses that as an excuse because he's the coward. Mm-hmm. He's the coward too scared to implement violence against it. Therefore, he will get devoured and not protect his own. But because he's scared, he uses, oh no, well, the whole thing is just horrible, so you shouldn't do it. It's just bullshit, if you look at any spec ops operator that I've met, I've met some really serious people outside of their line of work. They'd be serial killers. Do you know what I mean? But their mentality, they're essential. They are capable of an extreme level of violence, but just to protect those they love. You know what I mean? So really, I'm known for my understanding of that. People don't fly me 18,000 miles across the world to teach them how to throw a fucking palm strike. They know how to throw a palm strike. They fly me 13,000 miles across the world to teach them how to throw a fucking palm strike like their life depended on it. And that's the emotional component. And that's it, really, in a nutshell. That's what UC is.
And I think it's so fascinating, man, that, you really have taken this whole combatives thing to a new level. You really are implementing all of the stuff that you don't get. You mentioned Krav. I usually use that as an example myself. You don't learn how to fight by hitting pads. You learn how to fight by fighting and experiencing things. This is something that, you've come from yourself, growing up in a rough life, rough area, rough neighborhood, and then also just throughout your experience as a doorman and everything since, man, you get it. And that's, I think,
but all I can do when I come to those conclusions is give them to others. So how do you impart that to a student that has good physical attributes, good skill, degree of athleticism, is smart, understands what you're talking about, knows it makes sense, but has never experienced it before in his life? Well, if I said to that person, I'm going back to work on this door that I used to work on, it's a real fucking shithole. We'll work there Friday and Saturday. I guarantee you'll get some sport. You understand what I mean by that? Mm-hmm. It will kick off. Now, I've got your back. Don't worry, you'll be all right. But you're going to get a fucking chance to see what you're made of. Now, if I said that to most people, they'd capitulate. But if I said that to the odd person that went, fuck it, yeah, all right then. And I took him up on it, Well, morally, that would be wrong. Legally, that would be wrong. It would probably be wrong on a number of levels, but it would help. There is no better experience for the event than the event. So what do you do if you can't do that? Well, you have to take it close as you can. So the problem with martial methods, if you like, is that you got martial arts dojo here, and then here you've got the street, and then there's this big chasm that just drops down. It's called the reality gap. And this doesn't fit that. It's like trying to put a square peg in a hole. It doesn't work. What do? Well, you've got to implement a training structure with conceptual ideas that allow you to bring this reality gap closer and closer. And if you want to do that, you've got to simulate. So you need to simulate and scenario train with total non-compliance. In a simulation scenario where there's role play, there's dialogue, you're using theme, you're using structure, there's a safety man, you use the environment, and you elicit an emotional response in the student. So a student that's unfamiliar with violence going into a simulation for the first time will feel adrenaline. And you coach him for an effective result, he should build an experience. So rather than building up all these little skill sets so they get bigger and bigger and bigger, don't do any of that. Install the big piece, give the subject an experience, and then refine the details. Now, that's easier said than done. So let's say a student of 3 months understood how to throw a palm strike, attach, hammer, elbow, knew the concept of blitzkrieg, knew how to cover if he was under assault, crash, counter, etc., knew how to flank and hit, knew how to be physically capable. Very soon, I would take that subject into what's called a simulation. So a simulation would be where both of you know the desired outcome. So we might make a mock bar, and you're at the bar, and then I come back to the bar, and my drink's gone. And I say to you, hey, man, you took my fucking drink. And I didn't take your drink, mate. You fucking took my drink. It's fucking there. And you start kicking off and being aggressive. Well, the role players that we use are fucking brilliant. They're really good. And you see the look on the student's face. They're like, and it's going through their head. Fuck, he knows this is a drill, doesn't he? You know, that's what's going through their head. So it elicits an adrenal response. And it's preordained. They say, you know, look, he's going to give you some shit, and then he's going to assault you. You need to preempt him before he gets that. Now, if the student's not very au fait or familiar, then the person doing the simulation will work to his level. So if I put kit on, protective kit, and throw you in a scenario, the objective is not for me to show you what I can do. The objective is for me to show you what you can do. So your envelope will be pushed, but you will get a productive experience that you build on, right? And basically, I'm going to throw a shot at your head. You've got to cover, or you've got to hit me first, whatever else. Then whatever happens, happens. Simulation is when you both know the outcome. When you've done several simulations, you'll recognize no fucking plan survives contact with the enemy, as Pat said. No, I went to preempt him, stumbled and fell over, and now he's on top of me. Well, I had to fight my way out of that. Now I'm out the door. So any number of things can happen. But when I have a simulation, because several factors are in play. First of all, peer pressure. They're going one at a time and everybody's watching, so they've got to do well. 2, role play dialogue elicits an emotional response effectively. 3, I might pre-fatigue them first. I might make them do 10 wind sprints, spin them around 10 times with their fucking eyes shut so they're fucking disorientated, and then throw them into the simulation. You do any number of things like that to manipulate the emotional state. And the objective is that they incrementally get a better and better experience to the point where they'll do a scenario. So a scenario will be, right, you're going to go in this room, something's going to happen, deal with it, and come out. And you don't know what it is. It could be multiple assailants, it could be whatever. And you can induce this kind of simulation scenario training to a level where even for a massively advanced student, you can still adrenalize them. So here's an example. I had 15 students in a rest room. Man's changing room, like changing place for football. And they're just chewing the fat, talking, taking a piss, washing their hands, changing their clothes, whatever else. And then 3 or 4 padded assailants come in. They're the instructors. And they come in, they boot the door in, they're banging the walls, they're animated, they're pushing everyone, they're being wankers, they're bullies. They're instructed with select one target and attack relentlessly, right? That's what they're instructed. Everybody in that room knows they're going to get a turn, but they don't know when. And these three guys could be picking on this guy next to you and then both turn on you. So you are not preemptive now. You are counter-offensive. Best thing you do is cover, crash, wail, and beat your way out. This elicits an emotional response like nothing else. If you look at them on video, the moment that they're selected, they have gone limbic brain. They've gone from cognitive brain to limbic brain, which means they're massively adrenalized. If they are massively adrenalized during this simulation, then their subconscious brain does not know the difference between the real situation and a simulated situation. As long as the simulated situation elicits a similar response to the real situation. Does that make sense? And you can create that even by visualization and make that intentful. The subconscious brain does not know the difference between a real event, a simulated event, or a visualized event, as long as it elicits an emotional response. And there's certain components to that. Once you install a skill set in a student in this emotional response, it's downloaded to the neural pathway and motor memory almost immediately, which means they're never going to forget the experience. There's if they have a situation where they walk in a restroom and all of a sudden some guys start, they've been here before in their brain. Does that make sense? And you can make this really hard. So if it's an advanced student, let's say I get 3 instructors to attack him. Will he clinch one, turn him and use him in a line so they're stacked, so he can deal with one at a time and the other 2 can't get to him? He beat them down and then he'd get through the exit. All of them are instructed. As soon as you get to the exit and here, check, 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 it's done. Decompress, look around, assess the environment, move to a place of safety, right? But at this point, if I wanted to stress somebody that was of a higher level, as soon as they came out of the exit, I'd get them attacked again, unbeknowing, and see what comes out. And there's no hiding place with this type of training. And what you see come out is always gross motor and extremely aggressive. And it's scrappy and scruffy, but inside of the scrappiness, there's a beauty. You could still shot a snapshot of what the guy does, and you could illustrate a textbook with his skill. That way. So bottom line is, if you can't have a real experience, you've got to simulate. If you really want to know how you will do in an adrenalized state when spontaneity takes the reins, shit and fan meat, and there's no time to think, whatever you do just comes out. If you want to know if you can do that or not, you've got to simulate and scenario train. And you've got to give exposure to adrenaline. So a lot of people think that, in UC they don't do any sparring and they don't do any grappling. It's not true. We cross-train in everything. All my lads can box. We've all significantly boxed for a period of time, or Thai boxed, or lithaway. All of my lads do that. We all cross-train. We can all roll. We've all had grappling experience, whether it's BJJ, shoot wrestling, judo, Greco-Roman. We've all trained it, so we do it, right? I believe you must have an athletic base. If you learn basic gross motor combat stuff, like when you think about World War II operatives, were given 6 hours total combative skills, both armed and unarmed. 6 hours. That had to fit inside of the structure of everything else they did. It was about 3% overall. And if you know your Feb and history, if it wasn't the commandos or the resistance guys, Dad's army that stayed at home, or the home guard in case we got invaded, then it was SOE. There were spy operatives put in civilian clothes, dumped behind enemy lines, given a few skills that had to work or they're dead. A lot of them died and some of them made it back and said, yeah, this worked, that worked, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, people say, oh, when was it battle tested? Well, it was battle tested to a degree. If you look at the skills that were taught during the World War II period, I know you are familiar with that, with the gutter fighting that you do, and I know you know Fairbairn's methods, and etc. And of course, the fascinating system. He's the great granddaddy of close combat. He's to be respected. But in the days it was all chin jab, edge of hand, knee, elbow, whatever else. And it looked quite stiff.
Yeah.
and it was Japanese jiu-jitsu based with a bit of all-in fighting, and maybe there was some other influence, because when Fairbairn was in Shanghai with the SMP, he had police officers with him from many other countries that introduced him to very many other disciplines, Burmese boxing, lots of things made up the World War II combatives as it was taught. And, you know, if you catch somebody surprised by deception and chop them in the throat or smash them under the chin, these days it will still work. But of course, the enemy evolves. Yeah. The threat evolves. So World War II combatives worked back then, but wouldn't necessarily work now. It's a little bit stiff and awkward. But it's the principles that I took. And the principles are that what you learn must be easy to install, retainable and recallable under fight duress. Mm-hmm. So fight duress is the presence of fear, adrenaline, fatigue, disorientation, confusion, pain. It must work under those conditions. And that's where you see the most fine motor skills, such as trapping and this kind of stuff, it falls apart like a paper condom. You know, it really does. It needs to be gross motor. Large gross motor movements, push, pull, rag, tug, are actually enhanced under adrenal stress. You can hit harder and be faster. You're somewhat desensitized to pain and shock, somewhat in an adrenalized state. You just got to learn how to use it. But
and I noticed that you guys keep your stuff deliberately very simple as well, which is going back to that whole Fairburn gutter fighting, the Fendu thing, where they had to keep things very simple so they could install it into the guys and they could utilize it under extreme stress. You guys as well. I mean, I see everything on your YouTube channel, man. It's a lot of hammers, a lot of knees, a lot of straight punches, and just
gross motor skills. Don't get me wrong, right? I teach palm strike, slap, hammer fist, elbow, knee, eye blitz. I don't teach the axe hand because I've never done it. It never came in for me. So everything I teach, I've done. I've slapped people unconscious. I've hammered the fuck out of people. I've palm strike from a number of directions. I've chin jabbed people. I've headbutted, I've elbowed, I've kneed, I've kicked their feet out, spike kicked. I've left right hook and left cross was my favourite thing. So I've done most things. It's not the physical skill. Do I prefer punching over striking with open hands? They both fucking work. Mm-hmm. You know, why would you favour open hands over a closed fist? Well, with a closed fist, you need to make sure that there's no weak links. So if you've got a weak wrist and your hand goes, you don't punch. You need to use the correct knuckles to the correct target that's going to shape the brain. The old adage is, don't hit something hard with something hard because it will break. The idea is hit something hard with something soft. Yeah? And hit something soft with something hard. That would be the idea. So if a guy comes to me from 3 years of amateur boxing, I'm not going to teach him how not to punch.
Right.
Yeah. If I palm and attach and then hammer and elbow, that's just what I've used. Take the principle. I've hit, I've attached, and I've repeatedly hit. Well, that'll work for a boxer. Right cross, grab hold of him. Right cross, right cross, right cross, right cross. It's the same. It's just a different drill bit. And as human animals, we can only strike in 3 ways. We strike angular, linear, or backhanded. That's how we strike. On a linear line, you can hit straight down or straight up or straight in, but it's still straight. And that translates to a palm strike, a punch, a throat strike, a broken bottle in the face, a knife in the face, or half a brick in the face. It's the fucking same. It's just a different drill bit. So I get people line familiarization and how body dynamics are created by dropping weight and hip torque. I teach them how to use the machine and pick the drill bit after. It's up to you.
And most importantly, you're teaching them how to use that machine under duress and how to, I mean, I've seen your some of your scenarios that you guys are running, and it's really intense, man. It looks, especially for people who haven't, out there like yourself, dealt with violence, when you've got someone, cursing in your face and telling you're a piece of crap and it's intimidating, man. And for most of us out there, we'll freeze.
But if you've done it several times, it's just another day at the office.
Right.
So we do a lot of aggression therapy drills to get familiar with aggression, to get familiar with the body language cues. So if I said to somebody that didn't know aggressive behavior, give me 3 examples of somebody's non-verbal body language being aggressive. At best, they probably come up with, well, they probably point. Well, yeah, they point. They beckon. They head peck. They salivate. They puff up. They stalk. They balloon. They move from leg to leg. They use disjointed speech. They drop down to single syllables where they become monosyllabic. All of these things they get. And by doing aggression therapy, when you're going apeshit at somebody and they're just trying to keep you calm, you're recognizing that. And you're also recognizing what aggressive behavior looks like directed at you. You do it 10 times in a row. It just doesn't have the weight it has.
Yeah.
You know? So you would switch roles. And also for the person being aggressive, it's like a psychological detox. It like allows you, it gives you the carte blanche, right? Go ape shit, call him all the cunts, tell him how you want to fuck his mum, whatever the fuck. Say whatever you want to this individual, because it's all pointed out beforehand. None of this is personal. Do it if you want to do it. You don't have to do it. You're not obligated. The purpose of it is that you get an understanding and sensitization to violent and aggressive behavior. So when somebody gives you the interview in the street, you've been there before. And you can do it to the point where people used to kick off with me on the door, and I just used to stand there and I would just look like I was bored, you know? And I would stop them halfway through while they're kicking off and they're puffing up, and I would say, listen, mate, you've got all the right scary faces, but you've got to work on your dialogue, you know, and I need some fun with it, you know? And they'd be like, ooh, 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 like this. And then when they see you're not intimidating, they start to doubt their ability to intimidate you. Now they've got no ledge, right? Whereas if you go, oh, what, me? No, then you've just bit the silver hook.
Right.
So people understand the purpose of it. When you teach self-protection to women, let's say in Germany, where the majority of more of these things are happening to the women there, right? The MO is usually the same. 2 or 3 men that come up to them and ask them to come to a party. If they're stupid enough to go, they are the party. So if they decline politely and everything else, now they use vulgarities. Yeah, vulgarities that I'm not going to say. I do say in class, in context, but basically, you fucking slut, fucking bitch, I'll do this, and this. And the idea is that the woman has never heard speech like that before, and she totally freezes and capitulates, which of course she would. And it's from there they would press the assault or the threat of the assault. Whereas if I'm going to equip her to deal with that, she's got to deal with that kind of dialogue in a situation like that. So just in closing, because we'll wrap this up, I do talk a lot. If you said to me 10 years ago, in 10 years' time, you'll be teaching your students of self-protection how to take a hostage, and you'll be teaching them rear ambush from behind with a blade, I'd have said to you, you're ridiculous, don't be crazy. Criminal acts, I wouldn't teach that. It's all about context. Content is dictated by context, right? So, situation, 2 and 3 men come towards this woman in an underground car park, hell bent on fucking dragging her in this van and raping her. And fuck knows what, right? I'll make her understand the consequences of that. If she does nothing and capitulates because there's nothing on the disc, subconscious disc, to give an answer, then she'll never be the same again. On a psychological level, she'll never be the same. It'll have an effect on her always, and it will have an effect on relationships and everything. And there's a chance she could be infected with HIV and any number of things. So you've got to fear rape more than you fear getting hurt. Most women won't fight back because the thing they fear most is getting hurt. So they won't do anything in case they get hurt, in which case they get raped. They need to fear the rape above and beyond anything else. Now they will fight tooth and nail not to get raped. And there's a good chance they might still get hurt, but they won't get raped. And they won't get the black dog afterwards, the psychological despair for having done nothing. So I put to them the consequences plausibly as a good instructor needs to create the need to learn. You need to create the need to learn in your student, because your greatest resource for teaching a student is their motivation to learn. So I need to motivate them, right? So in that situation, let's say the girl pulls her spike. She's got a spike. Well, let's say it's in Germany, where she can legally carry a 3 or 4 inch fixed blade. She could carry that legally. Let's say she's carried it, she's accessed it. On her way back to her car, she's seen these individuals. She's put herself in a position where one's in front and she can't get triangulated. And she takes this cunt, fucking turns him, gets chest to back, and puts the blade to his fucking ear. In fact, sticks it right in his fucking neck and starts to cut and says, "Stay the fuck back," to the other two. And then hurts this cunt and says to him, "Tell your friends to stay back or I'll fucking stab you." And if he doesn't take her seriously, she stops. He's going back up, back up, back up. And now she moves to the exit, or gets to her car, throws the man into the other 2 men, gets in her car and drives off, or gets to the exit and runs. Well, in the context of that situation, taking a hostage would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Does that make sense? Right, let's look at the last one, which is rear ambush. Let's say it's an active threat situation. So in the US, they say, and many other countries, run, hide, fight. Mm-hmm. They don't give you any inclination of how to run, hide, fight, but they tell you to run, hide, fight, right? Here they say run, hide, tell. Who the fuck are you going to tell? Ghostbusters? It's ridiculous. And that's the government imposing on the British weak public that the Churchill bulldog spirit's gone. Oh, you don't want to fight back? No, just stay quiet and tell us. Bullshit. So I devised a program for active threat, which I've actually taught in the US. But by active threat, I mean an armed subject hell-bent on everybody's destruction. And what he's got in terms of weaponry just happens to be an axe, a meat cleaver, a machete, what you're seeing here, big ceramic knives. Now, the advice would be run. So, but nobody's told where to run. Where do you run to? The exit. Do you all want to run to the same exit and get logjam? You know, it begins with the tier 1 mentality that I talked about before. Change your perspective of how you think of your environment. So if you go to a public place, a restaurant, let's say, look at it from a 2-dimensional perspective. Don't just look at it as a customer. So don't just look at customer entrance and exit point. Where's the service entrance? Where's the trade entrance? Where's the staff entrance? If there's more than one entrance, there's more than one fucking exit. Know where it is. Sit yourself, position where you can only be approached frontal. Know the difference between something that will give you cover and concealment, or concealment and cover. You know, when you run, understand that any threat forward of you, you are in 10 to 2 of his peripheral vision, because he too is adrenalized. The best way to avoid eye contact with him or him seeing you would be to stay outside of 10 to 2, keep low and move quickly with purpose towards the exit. Well, now all of a sudden, the run part sounds more logical, doesn't it? Mm. The next part, hide. Let's say hide. When you hide, 5 minutes. When you hide, that you arm yourself en route. So let's say something happened, active threat came through the door, everybody scatters. You try to run, but you can't get out. Now you've got to hide. En route to hiding, you arm yourself with big fuck off shiny knife from the kitchen, and a small group of people get into a room to hide. Well, would it be useful if that civilian knew how to barricade the door properly? Would it be useful if he knew how to barricade the door that opened inward and how to tie off or secure a door that opens outward? I'll put it to you, it'd be fucking useful. Because your best chance in a run, hide, fight scenario would be hide and wait it out until the police get there, or the authorities get there. As long as your entry point can't be breached, you should be good. But if it does get breached, there's only one option left, and that's fine. And if you're going to fight, you need to fight till there's nothing fucking left to fight about. In which case, you need some leadership. You need to recognize if you're in a room with a group of people who's elderly, infirmed, or small that cannot fight. They're the ones that need to be hid. Is everybody else able-bodied? Well, make sure they've got a tool in their hand. Now let's use some tactics. Let's get half of the subjects this side, half of the subjects this side. One entry point. Let's make sure there's a distraction when the actual door opens. And when it comes through the door, we fucking swarming together with a mass attack. Tactics like that. Do you know what I mean? You would never expect the people behind you or next to you to jump in, because everybody can let you down at the moment you need. You can only ever rely on yourself. But if you've got an understanding or a game plan in play, then you've got a plausibility to do something about it. You might not get out of it in one piece, but you certainly might apprehend him and stop him from hurting everybody else. So this kind of stuff is more tier one civilian type thinking with where I'm going. You know? All right, brother, I'm going to have to leave it there because my dinner's ready.
Yeah,
It's
bro,
been great
I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope to catch you in person at some point, dude.
Yeah, it'd be great. Let me know if you're going to do something with this, and I'll watch it. I'll watch your clip. I like your channel. Channel's good. I've recommended it to a few people.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. And I'll definitely be sending you a couple of clips. Do whatever with them, watch them, and I'll let you know when I'm going to publish this.
All right, nice one. Nice to see you. Any other time you need anything, just give me a shout.
Appreciate it, dude. Cheers, man.